All right, and so we're going to go and introduce Phil DeStefano, who will be introducing you to our speaker today.
Good afternoon, and thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce the University of Colorado's 23rd president, Mark Kennedy. President Kennedy is a first-generation college graduate and assumed the presidency in July of 2019. He formerly served as president of the University of North Dakota, and before that served as the director of Graduate School of Public Management at George Washington University. His priorities to the university include fiscal sustainability, elevating student success, keeping CU's education affordable and accessible, and growing CU's research portfolio, and definitely by increasing CU's online education capacity. In his first year, President Kennedy has worked with donors and CU advancement teams for one of the most successful fundraising years in CU history, raising more than $450 million. We're pleased that President Kennedy has joined us today. Please join me in welcoming my boss, Mark Kennedy. Mark?
Well, thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to be with you here today. Appreciate that, and if I always appreciate the opportunity to speak with Rotary clubs, and if I may quickly share my screen, just cover the fact that during my time I've had the opportunity to speak with, and hopefully everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
With Rotaries in Stillwater, Minnesota, New York City, Brussels, Hong Kong, and in Istanbul as I've traveled around the world. So I know that Rotaries are great groups of community leaders. I thank you for being involved, being concerned about the community, and look forward to all the questions that'll come. So let me just start out with a few remarks, first about today, and then about tomorrow, and then I look forward to hearing what thoughts and questions you might have. You know, today, as we're all aware, we're in the midst of a pandemic that will be with us for a while, and as Colorado's flagship, our first order of business is to navigate this challenging time as we deliver on our mission. At CU, that means getting everyone in the CU community to wear masks, practice social distancing. It also means screening people who enter our classrooms and labs. It means testing frequently, isolating those who test positive, and tracing to limit the spread. And throughout CU, our faculty and our staff have worked hard to adapt to these new realities. Not only did we pivot quickly to deliver our on-campus instruction digitally last spring, but we've been working very hard to deliver an ever higher quality of digital content in recent months. And we found ways to teach on campus, either fully in person or by mixing digital and on campus into hybrid formats. I would suggest that our classrooms are the safest places in the state. There's been no known cases of virus being transmitted in any of our classrooms. Yet we found managing what happens off campus a bit more challenging. I know as members of the Boulder community, you're acutely aware that CU Boulder leads the state in the number of positive cases amongst their fellow universities, and I'd like to speak to that. You know, there are 3 data streams that Boulder County Public Health is tracking closely: the number of COVID cases in the county, the rate at which individuals are testing positive for the virus, and the number of hospitalizations resulting from the virus. And I wake up every morning and the first thing I do is check the latest data from Boulder County Public Health. I check the dashboards of our 4 campuses. I get regular updates from the chancellors. And as a board member of the University of Colorado Hospital Authority, I get regular updates from them as well. And I have frequent discussions with the leaders of Colorado's other universities and colleges, and engage with Governor Polis and the state on conditions on all 4 of our campuses. And here's what I'm seeing. We have 3 campuses in the CU system that are largely without significant incident. And when I look at the numbers of universities nationwide, even though CU Boulder has significant number of positive cases, it trails by some margin many, if not most, of our peers in terms of positive cases. But thankfully, Our collaborative efforts, the county, the city, the state, the university working together, has significantly reduced the number of cases in recent weeks. And the challenge before us in the weeks ahead is how do we loosen up some of the significant restrictions that were recently enacted and still keep cases in check. I assure you that before I check that data and the numbers every morning, I'm waking up thinking not just about the health and safety of our students, our faculty and staff, but about you, the community, because you are always in our mind and in our equation. The town-gown relationship that we have is vitally important to the future success of CU. Phil knows that, I know that, and we work hard every day to continue to earn that. But despite the fact that we're outperforming our peers in terms of number of cases, some ask, was it right for us even to open our campuses at all, given the pandemic? And I would say that we've acquired knowledge and skills and other learnings, how to deal with the city, county, and state that will really put us in a much better position for spring of 2021 or even fall of 2021 if the pandemic is still with us. So it's helped us to learn how to operate, how to educate within the confines created by the pandemic. When you look at California, North Carolina, Michigan State, who passed in any form of on-campus instruction for this semester, are they going to do it next semester? How about if next fall, if the pandemic is still untamed, and to the extent they try to come back with some form of on-campus instruction, they will be without the learnings, the findings that we've found. Yesterday, we announced that in addition to adding $5 million to emergency relief fund for our students that were impacted by COVID-19 from the foundation, that we also, and they've agreed at my request, to provide $2 million that we're distributing to the campuses to help with mental health concerns that have increased given the periods of restricted engagements with others. We have a lot more to do before this pandemic is behind us, but I appreciate all the hard work that the CU team has done to get us this far, all the collaboration we've had with the city and the county, and I'm confident that we will adjust as appropriate, incorporate the lessons learned, and continue to advance until this COVID is behind us. Now, if I could take a second to look at the future horizon for higher education. This coronavirus has not changed the future, but it's accelerating its arrival. And I would suggest that COVID has amplified three trends that were front of my mind when I arrived at CU: demographics, digitization, and data. The demographic reality is that we are evolving into a majority-minority state and nation. And for our citizens to succeed and to deliver the talent our state and our nation needs, and for CU to succeed, we must get better at attracting, retaining, and graduating students with less represented backgrounds. Last year, we hired CU's first Chief Diversity Officer, and we made diversity, equity, and access, inclusion and access, one of the 4 pillars of our strategic plan. And this put us in a better position for the work that we're now immersed in throughout the campuses, throughout the system. The pandemic has disproportionately impacted less represented minorities, in great part due to the fact that they have not proportionally benefited from higher education. The need for us to make progress in extending the benefits of a college degree to more has been intensified by this pandemic. Second, we must embrace the trend towards digitization that this pandemic has quickened to hyperspeed. Case in point, we're meeting and communicating by Zoom these days, and let there be no doubt, digitization is going to turn every industry upside down. Look at what it has done to our media. Look at the retailers. If you have a fondness for bricks and mortar retailers, I would suggest you take an extra look now, because their future is going to be under increasing stress as our buying patterns have been changed by this pandemic. For the last decade, total attendance nationwide in 2- and 4-year colleges has declined, with on-campus enrollment declining at a steeper pace, while online enrollment has grown. And there's a significant difference between on-campus courses delivered digitally and those courses that were designed for online from the bottom up, focused on the experience, the care, and preparation needed to make it not just great education, but a great experience for students. And both authentic on campus and authentic online will be sought after in the future, but the distinction between them will be blurred, just as it's being blurred with our hybrid classes. There'll be increasingly a mix of on-campus and online instruction within courses, within degrees. Key to the future of digital is that it consolidates. If we weren't on Zooms, we'd be on Teams, and I'm not sure anybody can name a third option. The best online content over time will be used by more, replacing online content that does not deliver both that great educational outcome as well as amazing student experiences. And quality online is as or more costly to deliver as on campus. It's only when you achieve a scale of your online offerings that you can ultimately reduce the cost of higher education. To achieve this, from the time I interviewed for the position as president of CU, I've been pressing for our 4 campuses to come together to deliver an unduplicated portfolio of high quality online programs through one delivery vehicle with 4 great brands. And even with the challenges of this pandemic, we are pressing towards that goal. The other way to improve student success in terms of retention and graduation and to make sure that we're delivering lifelong learning is to gather everything we know about our students from the time that they're a prospect until the time they're alumni, have that in one place, because we're in the age of intelligence. Some call it the 4th industrial revolution, where analytics, where AI has shown that you can harness data to improve outcomes. But this requires to have a common CRM, a common constituent relationship management system across functions, across campuses. But this will allow us to better recruit, better advise, and therefore increase the chances that our students will graduate, to better schedule courses, and so many other things. So elevating our technical infrastructure is another significant effort that we've launched and are continuing apace during the pandemic. In both of these, digitization and data hold the promise for us to continue to, over time, do more with less, just as we are now in our 3rd year in a row at the same tuition rate. This will help us to do a better job for reaching more of those who have not benefited from higher education in the past. We will work hard to navigate this pandemic. As we deliver on our mission, we recognize that it's accelerated the need for us to come to terms with demographic digitization and data trends. And even though we face lower revenues and higher costs, we of necessity are investing in the goals that will help catalyze our impact on the future, our ability to deliver opportunity for our students, state, and nation. And finally, if you please permit me to say a word or two about the tomorrow for our nation. Our future as a nation hinges on I would suggest one primary factor: preserving our global leadership in innovation. America's prosperity and our security has for generations rested on the United States being at the cutting edge of new technologies. In many ways, we take this for granted, but we're on a glide path to lose that leadership within a decade. And I would suggest no state is more to blame than Colorado for underinvesting in our future. Only by prioritizing as a state and a nation a significant increase in investment in talent and in discovery can we avert playing second fiddle to China. Advocating for such investment is amongst my highest priorities, ensuring, though, that CU outperforms in delivering on talent and discovery is my first priority. And when you add what CU receives from the state and what we get in in-state tuition, and you divide that by the number of in-state students we educate, no other state receives more in terms of quality education and research for what it gives than Colorado. Or said another way, no state contributes less for what it receives. We've proven that we provide a substantial ROI for the state of Colorado. Together with our affiliates, we pumped more than $14 billion back into the Colorado economy last year. We're the state's 3rd largest employer with 37,000 faculty, staff, and student workers. Last year, we received $1.4 billion in federal, state, and local awards with our wonderful faculty attracting research dollars which is a remarkable feat given the pandemic. Some states split their research between a flagship with a medical school like CU and a land grant with a keen focus on agriculture like CSU. In other states, they're combined. Colorado is the 21st largest state. Pennsylvania, Illinois, and Ohio are the 5th, 6th, and 7th largest states. Penn State, Illinois, and Ohio State are both their flagship, getting medical research, and land grant, getting ag research. But CU alone, without adding the great research done at CSU, we alone do more research than any of these larger schools. We're the 10th largest public research university system in the country. We do more research than MIT. We're 20th in the world in terms of the number of patents. This not only charts a future for better lives, but it's what helps attract companies like Lockheed and Marquette, sparks new inventions that launch new companies, with Ball Aerospace being founded by CU professors. The educational experience you get at a research university also means that you're learning from professors at the cutting edge, and you have opportunities for undergraduate research. So we will continue to deliver for our state and do so much more. For the sake of our state and the nation, we must be truly global leaders in delivering talent and discovery, and that's what we work hard towards every day. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you, and I look forward to your questions.
Great. Thank you very much, President Kennedy. So before we go to the questions, I just want to, like I said, thank you. One of the reasons why you're here, I think, is maybe the excellent reputation of Boulder Rotary. We love to ask tough questions. We like to get below the surface, but we also model the civil discourse that so many people are saying is missing in our country. So I'm going to start off with a really tough question, okay, to get you all warmed up. What's the best thing about being president? And you can say good tickets to the football game. So what's the best?
Well, we do very much appreciate the good tickets to the football game, and with Phil being able to welcome so many folks. But I say the best thing about being in academia is graduation day, when students cross the stage, get a diploma in their hand, and are heading out to a better life for them, their families, their communities. But the most fascinating and enlightening and enthusing part about being at CU is the amazing research we do, as I just spoke of. When you peel back the onion on $1.4 billion in research and just see what types of amazing things that it is doing to create a better future, what we've done with this pandemic and the testing we're doing on vaccines and treatments, and the new testing methods that we've come up with at Boulder, we are really tackling some of society's toughest challenges and making significant progress on it. So a lot of smart, hardworking people creating a better future for all of us is what really gets me ginned up.
Thank you very much, President Kennedy. Gordon Gamm, you have a question.
Yes, Mark, glad to have you with us. Hope you'll come back to our Rotary meeting sometimes.
We'll look forward to doing it in person.
What's that?
We'll look forward to doing it in person again sometime.
Yeah, I'd like that, Mark. My question is, what's the difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party policies towards higher education as a result of the upcoming election?
Well, I mean, I think we look at a couple of things. For us, it's support for financial aid. It's support for our research agenda, as well as, we've had a number of restrictions, frankly, on our international students of late that we've had a hard time challenging. I think America is better off having active engagement with the world. I think we are better off having a lot of international students on campus. And so I understand that we have security concerns that we take very seriously to make sure that our research is our research and doesn't drift into other nations' hands. But I think those are the things we look at. We would hope that they would all continue a support for financial aid available to our students, that they would support continued investment in our research, and that the restrictions that we have in terms of engaging the world are tightly focused on security concerns and not other factors.
Great. Thank you very much. Teresa Cezurek, you have a question.
Yes, hi, I'm Dr. Teresa Cezurek. I say that because I completed my PhD at CU in the Leeds Business School. And I wonder if you could speak to the financial strains that CU is experiencing because of, COVID and such. What is CU doing to stay financially sound?
Well, I appreciate that question. And as you know, we are facing both a significant hit on revenue in that the state funding was down very dramatically. The federal funding didn't fully meet that. So we have, on average, less government funding. We have just a bit less in terms of the tuition, in terms of total enrollment, but we've got the mix of international and out of state as such that our tuition revenue is also down. But when you think about all the work that Phil and his team are doing at the Boulder campus in terms of testing, tracing, isolating, creating a separate rooms for isolation, having less density in your dorm, therefore you need a rent, a hotel to put some of your students in. When you add the fact that you're cleaning in between every class cycle, all of those create higher costs. At the same time, we've had to invest more in online and IT. So we've regrettably, as you know, had to make economies. We started at the top with Phil, I, and all the other leadership taking a 10% furlough, which continues. Generally 5% furlough for anybody else who earns more than 60,000 with no impact on those below 60,000. And we've had to be really looking sharply at our hires. And several of those have been deferred, and we don't have a hiring freeze, but we have a hiring chill on to really look at those constraints. And although we've got a significant amount of deferred maintenance, we've had to hold back on some of that. So there's been a lot of things we've done, but I'm pleased that each of the campuses have put forth a budget that brings that all into balance. And at the same time, we're continuing to look to the future. So it is having an effect on us. We're working hard to do the best we can to navigate through it and impact people's lives as little as possible, but the appropriate adjustments are being made.
Thank you very much. Kitty DeKeefer, you have a question.
I do. First off, Mr. Kennedy, thank you for being here. As a proud sorority woman, how is CU working with fraternities and sororities to kind of keep a lid on COVID?
Well, I will, I may at some point refer to Phil, but my understanding is that we don't have an official relationship with our sororities and fraternities as a university as perhaps at some other universities. Recently in the new statement that came from the county, and Phil can correct me if I'm wrong, but the county will be working with each of the sororities and fraternities to make sure that they have a testing procedure, to make sure that they have a protocol, and that they work with the county to create a mitigation plan. So I would have to say that in dealing with our fraternities and sororities, given the fact that CU has less of a direct relationship with them, the county has been an important partner in terms of us in engaging and ensuring that we keep them healthy. And Phil, I don't know if there's anything further you wanted to add to that or not.
Just very briefly, thank you, Mark. And Kitty, how are you doing? Good to see you. So the other thing that we're doing,
too, Phil.
the other thing that we're doing with the fraternities and sororities, as Mark said, with the testing that the county is going to require for those houses that were under quarantine for the last 2 weeks, we are now able to give about 600 tests a day to our off-campus students, faculty and staff, and we will work closely with the county to make sure that we have a priority for the fraternities and sororities on that testing.
So we're not only with the state pulling back from their testing on the Hill, we're continuing to provide that testing for off-campus at both the Memorial Center and as well as on the East Campus.
Great, thank you very much. John or Lena Kotke, you have a question.
Okay, actually we just touched on it. Thank you, President Kennedy, for being here today. I should know this, but I can't remember it. As past president of the Alumni Association, what is the percentage of residential students that we have on the CU campus versus off, those that live off campus? And, you know, for those that live on campus, I understand the university is in a position to have a significant kind of, if you will, leverage in lifestyle and what they need to be doing and so on and so forth to help deal with the COVID thing. And that was really my question is, you know, kind of specifically what can or is the university doing to deal with the number of students that live off campus? Because I think it's a significant number.
It is, and I think generally Boulder, like most campuses, largely has freshmen and some smaller percentage of upperclassmen on campus, with the preponderance of upperclassmen living off campus. And other than the policies and procedures we enact when they come on campus in terms of having to fill out a questionnaire to make sure that they're not coming into the classroom unless they say that I haven't had any symptoms and I haven't been near anybody who has any symptoms, and making sure that they're distancing, that they're wearing their mask when they're on campus. The only other thing that we can do, and actually the Boulder campus has been working closely with the city and county on, is there are certain disciplinary measures that we can take for putting them on the potential for suspension or suspending. And if you look at the charts that Boulder updates every day in terms of their reporting, you'll see on the bottom what action steps have been taken by Boulder in terms of disciplinary actions in collaboration with the county, which has its own tools and ability to influence, encourage a responsible behavior by our students. We're also, of course, working with the student groups to encourage their fellow students to act in a way that's going to make them proud and their parents proud in the future. And so there's a lot of engagement at multiple levels, not just Boulder campus, but Boulder, the city, and the county.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. John Sullivan, you have a question.
Yes, hi, President Kennedy. I have a question about how do you compare, or would you compare, the value of in-person classes in terms of educational value versus the online Zoom classes the students must do now?
Well, let me just say there's three types of classes. There's the made for online, the on-campus delivered digitally, and the on-campus. And if you look at, for example, made for online, it generally costs, and students generally pay more for that than they do for our in-state on-campus tuition. The differential between made for online, and our digitally delivered, our on-campus delivered digitally, that gap has shrunk significantly in the recent months as each of our campuses and a lot of our professors have invested a lot of time. So I think the on-campus authentic experience is a great experience. The online authentic experience is great. They're both in the marketplace priced about the same. Do we want to be making sure that that's responding to the students' desires as opposed to the pandemic? Yes, and we're trying to get there as quickly as we can. I would point out, though, as well, that for Colorado students, at the average University of Colorado Boulder student, it gets subsidized at least $4,000 per year by the out-of-state tuition. So the value that is being received by a Colorado native going to CU is a value that is, as I've mentioned, hard to match anywhere else in the nation.
Okay, great, thank you. I just have a follow-up question before we go to our next one. I was just wondering what the threat is on some of these massive online classes. You know, if there's no limit, 10,000, 20, 30,000, is that a real threat to your traditional university and student experience?
Well, you're going to see a very significant disruption in higher ed, and you have what they're called the mega universities, that a lot of them happen to be based in our neighborhood: Arizona State, Western Governors, Grand Canyon, and others from out of our region, whether that be Southern New Hampshire, where their enrollments in online are 250 going to 300,000. And what they can do is they can invest ever more in the quality of that online experience, the fit and finish, the digital tools, the interactive capabilities with your fellow students and your faculty. And that it is mostly a threat to anybody who thinks they can deliver online at anything less of a quality. And right now, there's a lot of online, made for online, that is not the quality that an Arizona State or Western Governor is delivering. And what we need to, first of all, make sure is that all of our online offerings can compete with those big mega universities. But I think where we're going to be exceptional is our ability to mix on campus and online. Because if you had to pick campus, I think we have 4 of the best campuses in the nation. And to the extent that we can leverage that campus experience with digital when they want it, I think that's going to help us be differentiating. But make no mistake about it, life for the average university is not going to get easier in the decade ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a question from Dr. Gary Kahn. Gary?
My question actually you've covered the one that I originally had, which is what the current protocol is and what the plans are to scale up the testing. But I just dropped back to a part of that. Back when all of this started and you were anticipating the coming back to campus of the students here, it was announced that we had developed at CU, at BioFrontiers, I believe, a new saliva test that was rapid turnaround and promised to offer not only students on campus, but, beyond that, widespread surveillance on a regular basis. And I'm wondering how that has panned out, if it has, and if we're looking forward to any time in the near future of getting really constant and widespread surveillance for the campus, faculty, staff, and students.
I would say that we have 2 such tests developed by BioFrontiers at Boulder. And one of those is being used by Boulder for our surveillance testing. So when we test our dorms, and Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, weekly, it's using one of those BioFrontiers invented tests that pinpoint who do we need to have a PCR test. So some people have noted that the percentage of students with that are going positive with PCR tests seems high. In part, it's because we're only sending over to the PCR test those that we think are positive based on that surveillance test. And although we have not yet gotten either one of those FDA certified, I know that at least Colorado Mesa has been using one of those tests for a similar surveillance-based testing. So we're pushing hard on getting that FDA approved, which is not easy, or often timely. But those tests have been proving beneficial at Boulder and beyond.
Great, thank you, President Kennedy. Well, President Sally has a question for you.
Thank you, President Kennedy. It sounds like an enormous amount of your time is spent being strategic on how to deal with our pandemic and how to keep everybody safe. What are your plans come Thanksgiving and for the return after that, or is there one? And then how about January? What do you foresee might be a solution for that?
Well, I think, as you know, Boulder is set to, at the end of Thanksgiving, be having the remainder of their classes from their homes. Our other campuses are still trying to determine what they're doing. We're just now beginning to think through about spring. What does spring semester look like? I think you can expect that we're going to come at it again with at least some significant portion of the semester being on campus, with an effort to try to look and moderate, look at what's worked online, on campus, hybrid, what hasn't worked, how do we pivot and adjust, what adjustments can we further make between now and we come back in spring. But those conversations have just now begun. What would typically be happening is each campus chancellor would be working with their team, would be bringing it to us in the system. We would take a look at and bringing it to the regents to make sure we're keeping them updated on it. But at this point, we don't have definitive plans defined yet for spring, but it's going to build off the findings and the learnings that we've experienced this fall.
Wonderful. Paul Cure, do you have a question?
Yeah, President Kennedy, thank you so much for joining Rotary this afternoon. What are the future areas of research that the university is going to be exploring with these, I mean, an incredible amount of funding that is going to the university? What are the areas that you guys are focusing on?
Well, of that, I would say the biggest piece of it is healthcare, both at Anschutz, and you may know that Boulder is the highest National Institute of Health funded university without a medical school. So between the very significant amount of healthcare research being done at Boulder and the 600-700 million of research in healthcare being done at our Anschutz campus, that's the biggest. The second biggest is space. And we've really focused on can we be an even a bigger supporter also of our Space Force, not just NASA. You may have seen that Boulder helped build a satellite with the nation of UAE that was launched towards Mars out of Japan. Space will continue to be a significant piece. You might see also that tracking the environment, which is largely a space asset, that is being done in our Ceres Institute at Boulder, is also going to be a significant piece, along with alternative energies. We have a lot in basic science at Boulder, and in Springs and at Boulder, Colorado Springs and at Boulder, cybersecurity. But you know, amongst the things I'm really excited about is there have been a couple of quantum computing awards at the federal government of late, of which they've only given them out to 3 or 4 different universities, I think 25 million apiece, of which Boulder has gotten some recent significant awards in quantum. They're working with multiple Department of Energy units on quantum computing, and also they are one of the few that got an award to help with AI and how we can leverage AI. And in the case of the award Boulder received, it's exactly what I was talking about. How can we use AI to make sure we're intervening with our students, perhaps even before they know they have a problem, to say, hey, I noticed that you had not a great score in this test. You might be thinking of dropping it. Let me give you some advice. Or you missed a payment. And so having those very prompting ways of guiding our students through their career and time at CU is another place we're looking for in the artificial intelligence space.
Cassidy Murphy, you have a question.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, President Kennedy. My question is sort of based on some of the other speakers that we've had. We've had Matthew Shoup, who's with the Mosaic expedition, and then Professor Czech, who came and talked to us a couple of months ago. And both of them and some other speakers from CU talk about all of the collaboration that they have with other countries and students from other countries coming to work on their projects. And I'm reading in the news that not a lot of students from other countries are coming back. And I'm wondering how that's affecting the university and the work of the university going forward.
Well, as you can imagine, I've already mentioned earlier on that there are some restrictions that some of which we thought went too far, and all the chancellors and I have issued a statement saying that they gave extra impediments in them coming, but just the natural shutting down the flights coming has had a significant event. And as you know, from the perception of other countries with my son and his family, actually my son's in the middle of the Pacific aboard the Reagan right now, but his family's in Japan, and my other daughter is in Brazil. We're not necessarily viewed as, from a healthy perspective, a place you want to be right now, which we need to certainly get fixed. But a part of a not insubstantial slice of our financial hit is less international students. So it's impacting us that way. But I think the experience that international students provide on our campuses, and us educating others from around the world and having to go back to their own countries, are are hugely important. And so one of the things we're doing as part of our strategic plan is focusing on how can we even increase the number of international students we have and international engagements we have. You might know that the governor invited me to join with the ambassador from India to talk about some opportunities we could do with India just earlier this week. So I think that was reported in the Denver Post, and I'm actually meeting with the India Chamber of Commerce coming up this next week. I also find that, you know, we're in a day when there's a heightened focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. There is no better way to help students understand empathy for others than having them spend a semester abroad in a country where they're the odd person out, where they're the person that's always getting asked the questions, how's it like to be from X? And so I would just say, I came from a modest background, and Debbie and I are both thrilled to be first generation college, but when we had resources to spend on our family, all 4 of our children had been to Ireland, the United Kingdom, Italy, France, Mexico, Japan, and Istanbul before they got to college. And so I think that international experience, both for our domestic students as well as bringing international students here, is vitally important and something I'm strongly supportive of.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Okay, President Kennedy, we only have 1 or 2 more questions. Why don't we go over to Carol Griever or Marty, who's over at Carol Griever's. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Carol or Marty.
I think I'm unmuted.
You are, Marty.
Okay, sorry. Well, Carol bailed me out when the power went out. So Mark, thank you so much for being here. It's been a time in coming and going back and forth with Tony and Phil, and so we greatly appreciate your time to speak to Rotary today. My question has to do with collaboration. It kind of tag-tail to what Cassidy asked, but it seems to me that you and the other presidents of Colorado universities and colleges within the state have been doing collaborative efforts, and I wonder if you might give us some examples of this has probably been going on before COVID, but what kinds of things might be happening since collectively it's an enormous impact on the state in terms of the funding and resources that are brought to bear. But if you could comment a little bit about what you and your colleagues are doing, that would be great.
I will. So, I'm remiss in not mentioning music this far into the thing and the great work that our music college is doing and figuring out ways to navigate the coronavirus as well. I would just want to call out recently at the last year, Phil and I and Don Elliman, who leads the Anschutz campus, each put in $1 million to encourage more collaboration on research between Boulder and Anschutz. And we have 82 applications for people coming from both campuses together with ideas how those 2 campuses can collaborate. So that's just one of the many examples within the system we're doing on collaboration. But if you look at all the other universities across the state, this has brought us closer together. And we've worked very hard with them. For example, we have a funding formula that allocates amongst the universities that we had been doing every year. We worked very hard to get all the universities to agree to the same formula, and we enacted a 5-year formula so that we don't have to fight about that every year. We can fight about just how much we're putting into the pipe as opposed to how it's split. We also came very much together with our federal outreach. With the help of our government affairs team and others, we got every university in the state, public and private, to reach out in a unified way on 3-4 different times, expressing our view as to the state of condition we're in and how the additional federal need is so much needed. And in collaboration regularly with CSU and Mines, the 2 other research universities, we've also had similar letters engaging on that as well. But if you also look, I was just down to Gunnison, where at Western, we have a program where we're teaching the last 2 years of engineering at Gunnison, similar to what we're doing at Mesa. And just within the last year, in that we're going to need more docs, not less, particularly with this pandemic. We've reached a collaboration with CSU where we're opening up, we're part of the medical education for some of our students will be done at CSU, tapping the very strong hard science professors they have and allowing us collectively through the medical school to deliver more medical doctors for the state and the nation. So those are just, and I would say that the collaborations with the community colleges on trying to make it more seamless from 2 years there to 2 years with us is something we're doing. And I do believe that as we increase our online capability, we'll be able to educate more students all across the state and the nation without them ever having to leave, their hometown and continue to get the education that they need.
Okay. And our final person with a comment is John Sullivan.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you, President Kennedy, for taking the time to educate us today a little more about the University of Colorado. And since I graduated from the CU School of Law in 1987, I've always believed that Boulder is a better place to live and work and be with the University of Colorado in it than without the University of Colorado. And as a token and gesture of our gratitude for you presenting to us today, we are going to donate 100 doses of polio vaccine to the Rotary International Polio Plus campaign, which Rotary International has done for the last 30 plus years, along with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the United Nations. Thank you again, and we look forward to watching you guide dear old CU through these uncertain times and into the future.
Well, I very much appreciate the gesture. I very much appreciate that Rotary as a global organization, as you saw at the beginning of my remarks, is concerned about everybody else around the planet. And so I'm touched by you guys doing that, and I know it will benefit many others. So thanks again to the club for your engagement with the community, your concern about the community, and your collaboration and partnership with CU. So look forward to being with you in person someday in the future. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, President Kennedy. And if we were there with you in person, I'm sure that we would all be standing up and clapping. So thank you again for being with us today. You certainly deserve a standing ovation for all the hard work you're doing. So.
Well, and the whole CU team, they're working hard. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us.